YouTube, HeirofCarthage here, and let me be the first to welcome you to the Crack of Karkin. No, this isn't some monster's disgusting corpse butt that we're smelling here. This is the name of the map, and I've got a match for you between White Lion and Halo. It's going to be a good one. A little bit unorthodox for both sides. One side is rocking the Dark Elves, and the other is rocking Norsca, and Norsca has a flying goon squad. That's right, they can do this. A lot of people forget, but it's still a fun way to play. And we've got two Frost Worms, which are going to bring some cool features to the battlefield, like the Frostbite, magical attacks, and the ability to use those breath attacks from the air. And then we got a Feral Manticore, great way to cause terror. Front line of Marauders because he's gone so heavy on monsters. And then the real meat of the army here is a Shaman Sorcerer, Lure Fire with Piercing Bolts of Burning, Fireball, sorry, and the Burning Head. Then we've got two units of Thamir Warriors. These guys can do great damage, and they sunder armor. Good thing to keep in mind, there is a unit of Marauder Ice Wolves chariots out here. Now for the Dark Elves, a really interesting army here. We got Morathi on the Dark Pegasus, we got some Harpies, and then you already saw here the Raven Heralds, which is a flying repeater crossbow unit. There are 3 units of Shades. Now these guys are pretty darn good in melee against unarmored units after they expend their ammunition, and it is armor-piercing ammunition. And they can fire in 360 degrees, which makes them a really interesting unit. 2 Cold One Knights backing them up so they can do some work up front, and then there are 2 Blackguard of Naggarond along with 2 Blackguard Corsairs. The Corsairs provide the anti-infantry low armor punch, and the Blackguard provide a specialist anti-large, and just a solid all-around infantry, especially against most things coming from Norsca. And you can sometimes expect some large units coming from Norsca. Let's watch how this battle unfolds. Now remember, Morathi over here, she's got Heartrender and Dark Sword. So that should give her a pretty significant debuff to enemies in the area. And then she's also rocking Soul Stealer, so she can do a little soul stealing. The Harpies pop up here and early drive back the chariots. One of the Frost Worms gets in behind the lines, and watch the way it lines up here. I think some people sometimes underestimate the usefulness of terror with a quick hammer and anvil strike, and you're about to see it here. What's funny is that the Cold One Knights are the hammer, and they're hitting their target, but they're about to get hammered by this Frost Worm. Watch the attack here. Really effective breath attack. It gets overextended, and then the terror is going to hit from the Manticore from behind and the Thamir Warriors. Only downside here is that those Shades are wrecking the Frost Worm, and look at that play right there, knocking the Cold One Knights out of the battlefield early. Over here, the Harpies are going to swarm on the Frost Worm. That's probably a good plan. Units like that can hold a more important unit in place, and those Raven Heralds can get some work done. Now, the Shades do end up a little bit out of position here, and the Cold One Knights kind of have to be thrown in just a little bit early in order to get the Shades out. But remember that there is infantry ready to swing into motion, but the Cold One Knights are going to pay a gruesome price for that sacrifice. But here comes the heavier infantry, the Dark Elves. Now look at this, Manticore going to just go all out on the Shades. Probably not a bad plan. It can keep them busy and get some damage done. There's no Blackguard out there. These 2 Shades managed to fall back, and now you can see that they are targeting key stuff like this Frost Worm, and the Harpies keeping the other one busy. It won't be able to use its breath attacks. Thamir Warriors combining on the attack here, but that's where these specialist Blackguard are going to come in really handy. Thamir Warriors can decimate a lot of infantry. They are going to struggle to just pull down Blackguard, but you can see these Thamir Warriors were focused on trying to get through the Shades. They're going to start catching some damage from that Blackguard. Morathi's going to come down and debuff all the units here, and it is a pretty significant debuff. She is in the middle of a fairly heavyweight fight, though, with Wulfrik around. Remember that Morathi does deal anti-large damage, and she is actively debuffing everything around here pretty significantly. You can see the Frost Worm starting to waver, and look how quick those Thamir Warriors melted to the Blackguard. And over here, the Raven Heralds are still free to keep doing their work. I do kind of like this pick against Norsca, as Norsca has very little answer to the Raven Heralds unless it was a whole bunch of light cavalry with javelins. I mean, nothing else that is provided by Norsca is going to really do a whole lot of damage to that unit. Blackguard Corsairs, obviously good against Marauders, not so good against some of the chariots that are on the battlefield. And the Marauders here being used as effective fodder. They came in after a lot of the heavy damage was dealt. Look at this here. Piercing Bolts of Burning, Chariot Charge with Wulfrik, and a Breath Attack. It's going to decimate this Blackguard. So what a play. That was a fairly healthy Blackguard before that. So a very nice play. Morathi is pretty healthy, and she's going to dive bomb this Frostworm, and along with the Cold One Knights, she should be able to cause some pretty significant damage quickly. There are some Fimir warriors nearby, so we'll see how Morathi and her gaggle of fiends here manages to fend them off. The Fire Sorcerer using Fireball there again, but it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure what unit it was targeted at. Perhaps Morathi, because it looks like she took some damage. Could have just been the Fimir warriors or a charge from Wulfrik, and there comes a charge from the Chariot. Yeah, Morathi has been hit by the Hunter of Champions. Oh, and that's a great way to get rid of Morathi, because she can be tough to get rid of. The Fimir warriors there, that was a perfect timing on Hunter of Champions, and Morathi gets KO'd. Right at the same time, a Flaming Head does decent damage to these Blackheart Corsairs, but actually just gets a bunch of its own Marauders over here. And we got a fairly close fight on our hands, folks. There's a couple of units of Shades back here in decent shape. There were some Marauders that got back here. They're going to be intercepted by a Blackheart Corsair, who should fend them off nicely, especially with the Shades nearby supporting. There's a lot of mobile units left for Norsca, though, and the Dark Elves are going to have their work cut out for them here. They have got to shut down the mobile units of Norsca if they want to succeed. And right now, we got another Piercing Bolts of Burning coming in over there. That infantry moved just in the nick of time. Piercing Bolts of Burning can be quite underrated. If you get a nice heavy armored infantry blob, Piercing Bolts of Burning is extremely effective into an armored infantry blob. So do not take that spell for granted. It can be quite useful. Wulfrik is busy owning a lot of infantry here and doing what he does best when he's on a chariot or a mammoth, which is anti-infantry work. Wulfrik is definitely one of the better anti-infantry lords in the game because of his mounts. He's a fairly versatile lord. Let's check this out over here. The Fire Sorcerer, Shaman Sorcerer on his chariot's going to run down these Shades, who aren't able to get a volley in there before being charged, and there's some Marauders to follow that up. I mean, Shades, I'm pretty sure, would throw shade, joke intended, all over the Marauders, but they're a little bit weak, and their morale has taken some big hits, and Wulfrik is going to put the final blows on the morale of the Dark Elves. This was a close fight. It was an interesting one because it was, in my opinion, not exactly your typical kind of Dark Elves build. The 3 Shades, along with the anti-large and armor-piercing cavalry, and Morathi is just always a solid choice as a lord for the Dark Elves, in my opinion. I honestly think she's the best lord for the Dark Elves. Some people may not think so, and that may not be true. I'm just an average Joe giving my opinion on that, but I think Morathi's the best in terms of the number of different engagements that she can be useful in versus Malekith. Malekith's not a bad lord by any means, but I feel like Morathi is better. And of course, with Lokir Fellheart coming in a distant third, or probably fourth. What do you all think? Who ranks higher, Crone Hellebron or Lokir Fellheart? Tell me what you think, or who you think the best Dark Elf Lord is in general. First of all, well played by both players. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was fun to see these two players go at it here. I like the Goon Squad idea from Norsca, and honestly, the breath attacks on the Frostworm can be pretty dang effective. Fimir warriors, like I said, sunder armor. They can make Marauders a little more effective. Ice Wolf chariots, fast moving, good way to get into skirmishers. He doesn't really have any dedicated cavalry here. Like a lot of times, I think myself especially, I feel like I have to bring skin wolves. But I mean, he played it with the Air Force here. And your Fimir warriors are usually decent at kind of slowing down certain cavalry units as well. Not all of them, but they can be pretty good at trading with cavalry units, depending on what that trade looks like. But I mean, 3 Shades, that is risky business. But again, if you can use the ammo on these characters and then get them into late game, they could really put a beating down on what is most likely going to be fairly low armor units for Norsca in the end. And this gives you the ability to cause a lot of damage to potentially Mammoths. So you got Shades, Cold One Knights, and Blackguard. All those going to be good. And then the Raven Heralds to bombard from above. Morathi to debuff with her own anti-large damage. So I think White Lion picked a pretty interesting army here. It's going to be a fairly tough one to play, but it makes sense in a lot of ways. Makes sense. It comes with the right parts to potentially be successful. And I like the fun army here from Norsca as well. So thanks to Halo and White Lion. Hope you all enjoyed that one. I will be making more Total War Warhammer 2 battle videos. If you think you have some awesome replays, join the Discord. The link's in the description. We have a channel in the Discord for Warhammer 2 replays, Rome replays. You can go talk to whoever you want. There's an awesome community there. I highly recommend it. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Hit the like button. It helps other people find this content. And if you didn't like it, then get down in the comments. Tell me what I need to be doing better. Appreciate it. Hope you all enjoyed it. I know I love making this, and I will be back with more soon.